This is part 2 of the best 100-mile ride in Scotland. We're going from Tobermory through the heart of the glorious Isle of Mull. I'll show you how to ride it as a day loop or as part of this spectacular century ride.
I rode this with a team from Cyclist magazine in 2012 and tackled the whole route. It's a great loop involving 2 ferries, but the 3 parts can be ridden separately. Part 1 took us to Ardnamurchan Lighthouse. Part 3 will take us through Morven and back to the start. In this video, we'll tackle Part 2, down the marvellous Isle of Mull. I'll explain how you can turn different routes on the island into day loops. Straight off the ferry from Ardnamurchan and you're into the best of Tobermory, the most instantly recognisable town in Scotland. It was one of the first places to embrace tourism, and it's worth riding along its multicoloured seafront to take a look. I prefer to double back and, up near the ferry, take the steep climb away from the seafront, which is easier than the hill at the end of the harbour and more picturesque.
And yes, this is the least steep way out of Tobermory.
Get food and water before you leave. There are few other opportunities as we head into the single-track lanes, climbing most of the way.
There are several different ways down Mull, so let's just go through them.
The most direct way between Tobermory and the second ferry at Fishnish, great name, is down the coast, but it is also busy. There are better ways, and so should only be used if you're in a hurry.
Almost certainly the most spectacular route is the west coast. It's hilly, it's longer than the others, and for the full century ride I think it might be pushing things because the ferries are a bit of a time bottleneck, so it's going to take you longer to ride this century than any other. So that's why I've picked the route down the heart of Mull, because this one takes you into a lovely, pretty lonely part of the island. The last time I was on Mull was on a gravel bike, and I remember being here, this sign's in the video, and going off down that route, because this turned into quite an epic. If you want to have a look at the video, well, this is it. Go and have a search for that when this is finished. As I say, I was trying to do a bit of an experimental route, and it didn't really work out as planned. There are 3 sets of zigzags on this route. 2 go down, 1 goes up. And I might be perverse, but I actually prefer the one that goes up. This actually feels like a real climb. And as you climb, the views open out and are magnificent.
I'm now into Derveg, where the local joke is the church was designed by NASA.
Derveg's a really nice place. I believe it's an Old Norse name meaning good harbour or good shelter or something. Anyway, this is decision point on this ride. We could keep going along the fabulous west coast, heading towards Calgary initially, and that is fantastic, but it is an hour longer than if we go this way down Glen Aros through the heart of Mull. And this is the way we went with Cyclist magazine because, quite frankly, we were a bit short of time. The ferries do squeeze you a bit. You could make a convincing argument that by missing out the west coast, I'm missing out the very best that Mull has to offer. And you'd be right, but that's worth a separate ride, separate video, all by itself. And also I like this glen. It's long, it's lonely, it's quiet. It seems to get to the heart of the island. So now we are back at the main road, and the sign there says 8 miles to Tobermory. So if you want to go back the quick way, head that way. If not, if you wanted to take in the west coast, which I've made so much about, go down to the next village of Sarland, turn right, and then it's back to Tobermory by one of the most beautiful rides around.
That, of course, is if you're doing a day ride. The Century ride continues through the second Salon on the route, and then pretty much time trials to the ferry, because the chances are you're running late. About 6 miles down the road, a left turn takes you to the tiny Fishnish Ferry terminal to wait. The relatively new Calmac ferry is fast and fairly frequent in summer. That's why I prefer to do the ride in this direction.
Did you have a good day?
I had a good day, but it's picked up the wind, mind, hasn't it?
The ferries add an extra dimension to a Century ride, not only opening up an island but putting some spice on the adventure. Perhaps a little too much spice given the COVID restrictions in place when I wrote this. In part 3, I tackle the moors of Morven, the weather breaks on the big hill,
And for some reason it's always longer and steeper than I remember it.
but it's a glorious return to the village where I started. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the bell notification so you make sure you don't miss part 3. Until next time, bye.